Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Good morning. It's an early Saturday morning, so I'm not sure how you're feeling, but I'm feeling a little bit lagged based on yesterday. But I'm so excited to be your MC for the 2021 Good Food Gathering today. It is our final day, but definitely not the final day for reflection and education and learning. And so I hope that while we may not gather in the same way until next year, that we're still taking everything it is that we're learning throughout this. And I would love to take this time to provide some reflections on yesterday, how I engaged, what it brought up for me. One of the most beautiful things is I was mentioning my connection to land, and I was mentioning wanting to go home. And I'm so ever more excited, but also grateful to be able to have the opportunity to go back to the Bahamas, to reconnect with the lands there in a more meaningful and understanding way based on the teachings that I've been given since I've been here. And I reflect on the fact that there are those who will never be able to reconnect to their lands, whether that's because they physically don't have access to their lands or simply because their lands no longer exist. And I think about the privilege for me to be able to take the knowledge and the understanding, the wisdom, the spirituality between what does it mean to connect to earth? What does it mean to build reciprocal relationships to land? And I'm able to go and build those here, build those wider, and take that back home. I have a home ancestral lands that I can return to. And so it's from that space and from that place that I would also like to acknowledge all of the Indigenous peoples and all of the Indigenous lands. I would like to recognize and thank so very much for all of the knowledge and the gifts of understanding and wisdom that we are being gifted throughout the ceremony, not just Indigenous peoples, but from peoples all over, because I'm able to take that wisdom and use it. And some of you don't have the honor anymore to be able to reconnect to your lands. And that was a very sobering thought that opened the land, listening to the land panel early yesterday morning. One of the most amazing and I think impactful statements for me was that people go out and they hike and they engage with their visitors in the way you are when you go to a museum, you look around, you point something out, you say that's cool, and you walk back home and you don't really take any of that content with you. It didn't change your perspective or point of view. It didn't bring you to a new understanding or a new way of approaching something. You simply passively engaged and you walked away. I would hope that one of the greatest things that we will all learn throughout this process is not to passively listen, but to actively listen. And I think that's something that everyone has established that we need to do, that we need to do less of acting without asking. One of the most grounding and centering things for me was something that Bianca Elliott brought up yesterday as well, asking about, well, who asked you to do that work? There are so many times that we start projects, we start initiatives with the best intentions, and best intentions are incredible. But if the Indigenous communities themselves, the communities we are supporting, we're advocating, we are accountable to, didn't ask for that work, but we're asking them to support ours, then how are we really showing up for them? How are we really being accountable to those communities? When I think about the conversation I was sitting in with Megan around land accessibility, I think it's so important that we make sure that when we're talking about food access, land access, that we're taking it from a lens of who can physically access this space. Is this space not just environmentally welcome, but can I physically go here without inhibitions, without the acknowledgement or understanding that I am other, and therefore there are certain things that I just will not be able to do? How do we make that space accessible? And I'm definitely of the belief that if we are working on that for one community, the butterfly effect will have that impact, and we will be able to increase accessibility, increase equity for all peoples trying to engage in a food system. And so those are some of my reflections throughout yesterday. There's going to be so much more. There's so many things that I couldn't engage with because I couldn't be in two places at once. And so I'm so excited to know that there are recordings of all of these. So I hope you will do as I do and kind of follow along and find those recordings. We're on Zoom again. Good morning. And it seems like it's going to rain probably today instead of like it did yesterday. And so if you're going to be on Zoom and you're engaging that way, please remember to mute your mics when you enter. Make sure that you know that we are being recorded. And so if you don't want to grace us with your beautiful faces, you don't want to be in our recordings, totally understandable. You can just turn your mic off. You can turn your camera off. But we do want you to engage. We want you to have conversation. We're going to hear so many updates, projects. We're going to have a lot of information coming at us, and you're going to have reflections on that. And we want to hear them. We want to see your questions. So please populate the chat with that engagement. A lot of our presenters want your engagement. You are a part of this conversation too, whether you are a food advocate, whether you're a policymaker, where you're someone reconnecting with your ancestry through the earth, or simply a consumer of food, you belong here and we want to hear your input. And so I truly, truly hope that you'll take us up on that. In addition to that, if you are coming to any of the in-person events that we're having, thankfully, we all got sent links on Thursday morning of all of the addresses for each of these sessions. But in addition to that, on the 2021 Good Food Gathering landing page, there's an attendees only event page. And in that, you have the addresses and links that you need as well. The code is food for all caps, no spaces, and you'll be able to find all of that information in there. If you are going to your in-person events, please make sure you review our COVID rules. But just to go over it briefly once again, make sure that you're bringing your vaccine passport, make sure you're bringing your ID, you're bringing a mask, and you're keeping social distance. And we want to make sure that we're building relations, but we're also keeping everybody safe. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for housekeeping. And so what I really want to take this time to do now is introduce our first and beginning session that we're going to be having this morning. I think it's a great time for us to reflect and hear about how did the last year go. Good Food Gathering is a time when we all come once a year to really reflect on what are the projects, initiatives, engagements that we're all participating in. And so let's reflect on how last year went and how we're going to move forward this year. And so thankfully, we'll be hearing about new initiatives and collaborations and opportunities around the Good Food Network. And we have Joan here. And thankfully, Joan is absolutely an incredible human being. Her lifelong passion for growing and eating healthy food aligns perfectly with her role as the executive director of the Lifecycles Project Society. She spent more than a decade advocating for the income responses to food insecurity and developing healthy food projects as a part of building a stronger and more vibrant community. This work is so essential and so important. And so I'm so happy to be able to pass this over to Joan to give us those updates. Thank you.
Mike. Are we good now? Minor tech difficulty. So good morning again. I'm speaking to you as the current chair of the Good Food Leaders Network, or Good Food Leaders Group. And I have a presentation that will be up shortly. So this always happens to me. It happened last year too, just saying. And we checked it all out first. Oh, here it is. Yay, Anna. Luckily, we have so many brilliant people here. Is it not on, right? All right. So I'm here to give you the Good Food Network update. As I said, my name is Joan Stonehocker. I'm the executive director of Lifecycles Project Society, and this is a brilliant photo of, is it? Somebody seen it? Of one of our projects where high school students learn about growing food and about food systems. And the other thing that Lifecycles does, this is just a brief plug at the beginning, is I wanted to talk about what an amazing year we've had harvesting. Is this season we've harvested over 78,000 pounds of fruit, and this compares to just over 40,000 pounds last year. So it has been a wonderful season, and as we move forward, it's really exciting to think about the food that this land provides for us. But I'm here to talk about the Good Food Network. It brings organizations and individuals together to work towards a healthy and sustainable food system here in the Capital Region. The network reflects our community with actors from nonprofits, community organizations, government, Indigenous nations, academia, and food producers and processors, all working towards that shared vision of a healthy, sustainable, and equitable food system. We're working towards the 2025 food impact areas, and the goal is to create a simple, clear, universal way to monitor and measure change in our regional food system over time. We have 3 impact areas that we are concentrating on: food literacy, which is understanding where your food comes from, how to prepare it, understanding nutritional value, how to stay healthy; and the food economy, the local food economy, which becomes so important when we think about our recent events where we have been cut off from the mainland somewhat, and Vancouver is cut off from the rest of Canada. When we look at what's happening on our land, we can understand how important it is to think about where our food comes from. And finally, food access and equity. How do we make sure that everybody has access to the food and nutrition that they need in a culturally appropriate way? So this picture is something that the goals or impact areas. It's a map that was developed in 2018. And you can see it's really complicated. I realize you can't read it, but it is a really comprehensive map, and it shows the complexities that we deal with when we think about the food system, and how it's important to identify our priorities at the start, that we're seeking a just, healthy, and sustainable food system. We're not looking for profits. Food is an important part of everyone's daily life, necessary for survival. And there's a reciprocity to healthy food systems. For instance, the food system can be a problematic contributor to greenhouse gases with monocropping and long transport routes, or a solution to reduce greenhouse gases by fostering local economies, using regenerative growing and production practices, and building healthy people. Based on the feedback after last year's 2020 Good Food Summit and surveys of Good Food Network members, we developed several priorities for 2021. We continue to build out the metrics framework so we can measure progress and build on successes. We're developing our ability to effectively advocate. Equity and inclusion are so important. Research has shown that Black and Indigenous people are more deeply impacted by food security, and we need to make sure that we redress those systemic problems. Resource sharing, I'll mention a bit later. Connecting the network, we continue to build our communications capacity, and CRFAIR is working on a website and brand refresh in the coming year. And through capacity building, we're supporting roundtables and working groups to advance our good food goals. Many of you will be familiar with groups that are working on projects related to our goals. Here are examples how members of the Good Food Network work together. Tables like the Food Literacy Working Group, the Food Policy Task Force. I hope you had a chance to hear Matt Kemshaw present his research findings and opportunities for healthy school food environments, which was a project of the School Food Shift Working Group. Climate change and food systems are feeling very pressing. So in less than a half a year, we all know we've had 3 new weather phenomenons that I hadn't heard of before. Heat domes, weather bombs. Actually, I had to go back and find out what a weather bomb was, but it happened. And now atmospheric rivers. Supply chains are being severely impacted by the flooding, and we can no longer ignore the need to address our exploitive practices in food growing. So I wanted to just reflect on some of the things that we talked about in 2018 on the outcome map goal and the successes we've had in 2021. So one of the topics around food literacy was that youth have opportunities to learn and self-organize across the system. And in the past year, the Youth Food Network has coordinated the Youth Food Justice Group. Sprouting Conversation podcasts were completed with 12 episodes, and they're great, so listen to them. And the Youth Food Justice created the Loving the Land zine. Under food economy, the product aggregation capacity is available for small and medium-sized producers. We are celebrating the launch last year of the South Island Farm Hub, supporting distribution of local food from 25 farmers and 20 processors. And we're in the process of developing the aggregation and distribution food hub and Kitchen Connect, which will be coming next year. Amazing work being done around the local food economy. For food access and equity, trying to ensure that we have an effective network of community kitchens and distribution services to meet local vulnerabilities. The IA Creative installed burlap sack gardens and distributed growing capacities to people, and the Red Cedar Cafe, which started in 2020, continued to provide dignified access to affordable and free meals. So this slide highlights the great work that we are accomplishing together, getting funding out to groups to do that grassroots work, building gardens in schools with Farm to School BC, building infrastructure, the what I just mentioned, the Food Hub and Kitchen Connect. The Food Share Network estimates that they've redistributed, rescued, and surplus food over 700,000 pounds, and providing distribution support for local farmers and processors through the South Island Hub, over almost $300,000 in product. So what can you do? There's you can engage in this process in many different ways. You can do it very passively by keeping informed and signing up for the monthly newsletters. You can get busy and join a working group or support the work of a network member, or you can be an advocate and really get out there and let decision makers know that you care and share what you know and the importance of a healthy food system. Now I'm going to turn the mic back over to Linda Gagey to present the 2021 Good Food Champions.
Hello, I love this part of the gathering, and part of what we try and do when we gather once a year is to really recognize the work that is going on in the community. And obviously there is a sea of good food champions in our region, and many of you are tuning into the call right now, into the Zoom right now. And what we did with the Good Food Champions this year, I really loved, in terms of, we reached out to you, the peers and of the Good Food Network, the members of the Good Food Network, and said, who do we need to recognize? Who is doing fabulous, important work that is inspiring us and that we're really proud of? And so I want to bring to you the Good Food Champions 2021. Voted, first of all, they were nominated from the Good Food Network members and the leadership, and then they were also selected from the membership. So the first of the Good Food Champions that I want to bring to you is, I just want to make sure I get my order right.
Oh gosh.
Drum roll, please, everyone. Red Cedar Cafe. I'm sure this is no surprise to you. There was a group that went out to the Red Cedar Cafe on one of the site visits yesterday as part of the conference schedule. And when the team came back, there was so much chatter about the amazing work that they're doing. They started in 2020 in response to COVID, and just really, their work is really grounded in providing dignified and affordable and free food to some of the most vulnerable in our community. They pump out over 1,200 meals a week. And they're just opening their sliding scale cafe. And we just want to say amazing work to the whole team that makes up the Red Cedar Cafe. Your community sees you. They love what you're doing. we're really proud of the work that you're doing. So thank you so much, and congratulations. You've been recognized by your peers as a Good Food Champion this year. All right, next recipient is, drum roll, Community Fridge and Community Food Support Victoria. And this is also a very grassroots, volunteer-led organization. They also have been working really hard to meet some of the growing needs of vulnerable communities across the region, setting up a fridge and pantry in the Rock Bay area, creating really accessible food for people who need it. They can just come and take what they need, and it's all volunteer led as well, and the food is donated, and they're just doing a really good job of meeting this need in our community. And so Community Fridge and Food Support Victoria, your community sees you. They really love the work that you're doing, and you are also a 2021 Good Food Champion. And finally, an organization that many of you know, and they're long-standing resource and organization in the city, the Compost Education Center. I know many people have been and seen their demonstration site, have been to their workshops, and being able to use the resources that would provide really practical, hands-on knowledge and skills for our community. And they really stepped up during the pandemic in terms of the Get Going initiative, and provided people with the kind of support that they needed to grow food in their backyards, and really looking at starting from the ground up in terms of promoting soil health and of course composting education. So I just want to say congratulations, Compost Education Center. Your community sees you, loves the work that you're doing, and you also are a 2021 Good Food Champion. So we have gathered up a beautiful gift baskets for all of the champions to take to their teams and to volunteers and share, and we'll be delivering those to your door as a symbol of our thanks for all of the good work you're doing, and keep it up. We just love to see it and are supporting and rooting for you and your success all the way. Thank you. All right, yeah.
Thank you so much, Linda. That sounds amazing. You know what I love about the idea of a good food network? I think when we even think about plants, when we think about our ecosystems that we're engaging in, they don't thrive without a network. They don't thrive without being in an environment where they are supporting each other, where there's collaboration, where there's connection, where there is an engagement, and where they're constantly building upon each other. And I think the fact that we're even having a network, the fact that we come together all the time, the fact that we are constantly recognizing the necessity of what that looks like is essential to the work that we're doing. And so it's amazing to hear about all the different engagements and what everybody is up to. And I'm so very, very excited to see what comes next. Yeah, what is coming next? So so we'll be having some, I'm not sure if you, so I've never heard of this term before until recently, but we'll be having some Pachaku presentations. And so what are they? I had to research it, but what I found out was that it is a Japanese presentation style, and what it means is the sound of conversation. And so the way that it's going to happen is there are going to be 20 slides for 20 seconds each, and each person or organization will be able to kind of really be impactful and concise with all of this incredible information that they're providing for us. So we'll be having 4, and I'll introduce them as they come. So our very first one is going to be from Kitchen Connect. And so Kitchen Connect is currently being developed as a food business incubator and a processing facility coming in the winter. It's a space that aims to address gaps in the food systems and to enable farmers in creating value-added products for food businesses and to scale up into real markets and for training opportunities. So I'm sure it's going to be amazing. I'm super excited. I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm really excited to see how all of this flows. So I'll hand it straight over to Kitchen Connect.
Good morning, it's Tish here. It's the first time I've ever done one of these. I'm expecting the slides to appear shortly, and then I can begin the presentation. I'm ready anytime. Okay, Kitchen Connect is a new piece of infrastructure in our local food system. And that isn't 20 seconds. I have to set the timer on that. It's hard to fit things into 20 seconds, but it's been fun. Kitchen Connect is a new piece of infrastructure in our local food economy. It's a business incubator and processing facility and is one of our, and it's part of our regional food hub. We're connected to other food hubs in the province through the Ministry of Agriculture's BC Food Hub Network. And thanks to the Ministry and the City of Victoria for their support. One way to extend the seasons and eat more local food is to add value to locally grown produce, and that means processing the harvest. Kitchen Connect is building the infrastructure capacity to scale up food businesses and serve the grocery and institutional markets. This building you see here was purchased as a community asset for the mustard seed and houses our regional food hub. The Mustard Seed Food Rescue Program distributes rescued food from grocers and redirects it into the charity sector through the Food Share Network. Kitchen Connect is phase 2 of the food hub and is going to be in the same facility as the Mustard Seed. And the Mustard Seed's existing commercial kitchen and training center will be part of that, of the food hub as well. So we're calling it an integrated food hub. South Island Farm Hub was phase 1 of the food hub project and runs out of the facility as well. Like Kitchen Connect, it's a social venture of the Victoria Community Food Hub Society and aggregates and distributes local produce for home delivery and into the charity sector. Inside the warehouse, there's 10,000 square feet of space, and you'll see in the blue area is where the new processing area will be. The lighter beige areas are the mustard seeds infrastructure. So we'll be connecting local produce, rescued food, and being able to process it. Kitchen Connect will provide local processors in this facility with 3 cook lines, 1 pasteurizing line, 1 fresh produce packing area, and a commercial vegetable washing line. The facility will have the infrastructure requirements and protocols to allow processors to certify in a way called HACCP that will allow them to sell into the grocery and institutional markets. That's where most people shop. We will also have a training kitchen, a part of the Mustard Seed that you see here. And our chef at the Mustard Seed, Chris Hammer, will be building skills, training food sector workers and in health and safety skills. Our farmers are very much included in this process. The capacity to clean, wash, and pack their produce will leave them more time to be in the fields and grow more product. South Island Farm Hub would like to work with farmers to create new products from the abundance of the fields. We're also working with local retailers to private label products, assist with deli food preparation, and work with private brands. So you can see we're connecting a lot of different sectors here in our process, in our kitchen. Processors will have the facility now, flexible, affordable processing space. Our pasteurizing line will increase the shelf life of their product and also decrease the amount of labor, making it more viable in the larger retail sector. For restaurants, we'll also be helping with training workers with kitchen skills and food safety, and opportunities for chefs to potentially create their own products and have access to the larger markets. Nonprofits that have also already accessed rescued food also have access to local farm food through the South Island Farm Hub. They might want to add value and create a social venture themselves using our kitchen, cater events, fundraising events, and provide experience for their workers, work training experience. Healthcare and educational institutions also require the higher health and safety standards for products made at Kitchen Connect. And we can now meet that criteria and supply products, lightly processed goods that might help chefs. The Pesto Project is part of the South Island Farm Hub, identifying areas of abundance in our field and creating a product out of that. This is a arugula and arugula and skate pesto. We'll continue on with this project. So making connections is what Kitchen Connect is about, connections in the food system. And here we are with a group of processors discussing how we can work together. Processors and our partners are touring the facility now, and we welcome others to come and have a look around. A new website is in the works, and we plan to launch the facility in the spring of 2020. Our social media will also be beginning once the website's up to keep you connected to what's happening in the Kitchen Connect project. This is a picture of our construction team that's come together, and they've already started the work on the building and this new community facility. Feel free to give me a call and learn more about how you can be involved in this project. Kitchen Connect is about connecting all these parts of the food system to innovate, create, and build a local food economy that will increase food security in our region and provide good food for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the one thing that really stuck out to me was the pesto. I think I'm absolutely in love with that project. It made me extremely hungry, and I just want kind of like just a baguette with some pesto on it. But thank you so much. You filled so much information and space into there. I love the connection between you and South Island Farm Hub. So Kitchen Connect, an amazing resource. And I hope everyone who doesn't already know about it or who wants to learn more will go and engage, go to the facilities and kind of just look around and see how you can be involved. I think what's really incredible about these presentations and what I really hope people will take away isn't that you're trying to consume all of the knowledge you're being shown. I think it's really just there are certain things that'll stand out to you and really things that'll highlight for you to be like, okay, I'm going to look this up later. Where we're going to go straight to talking about the Community Fridge Initiative instead, while we wait for everybody else kind of just to pop on. It is a Saturday, so everyone gets their leeway. The Community Fridge Initiative, it's something that I remember coming across. I remember being a part of like initial meetings when it was just being produced. And so I'm so excited for it to be a good food champion. And I'm so excited to hear the presentation today. Through a mutual aid grassroots-led model, the Community Fridge aims to create a safe, welcoming community space where people can access free, quality, and healthy foods and hygiene products. It is something that's accessible. It's something that is so amazing. And it's not just a fridge. It's an absolutely beautiful concept. And I would love to see that spread all across the island and beyond. So I'll hand it over to you.
I don't know what the best way is to find. It's Nicola and I. Yay, there we are.
Hello.
Can you spotlight two of us? Nicola, can you confirm you're around?
Yep, I'm right here.
Nice. I'm joining from my phone today, so things are a little funky on my end. Hello, my name is Ren Shaman. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm joining the call today from the lands of the Lekwungen speaking people.
And hi everyone, my name is Nicola Watts and I am using she, her pronouns, and I am joining also from the lands of the Lekwungen people.
We'd like to begin by acknowledging with the deepest respect that our organization is operating on the unceded lands of the Wasanich and Lekwungen speaking peoples. Our organization is committed not only to food security, but food sovereignty and food justice for Indigenous peoples. We prioritize decolonization, anti-racism, and anti-ableism in our work.
So community food support began organizing in the spring of 2020 with a hamper delivery program, and they continue to operate that hamper program, delivering 85 hampers weekly to self-selecting residents. And the community fridge opened in May of 2021, operating out of Rock Bay.
Both groups aim to provide members of the community with fresh, exciting, and nourishing food while facing as few barriers as possible in accessing it. We believe that these projects fill different gaps in existing food distribution projects, but they also prioritize minimizing food waste by primarily redistributing food that would otherwise be wasted, whether by grocery stores or individuals.
So what is food security? Food security is when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. That means not just shelves filled with food at the grocery store, but that food is affordable and those spaces are accessible.
Food security exists, insecurity exists in three different categories: marginal, moderate, and severe. And in 2017-2018, 1 in 8 households in Canada were found to be food insecure, amounting to about 4.4 million people and 1.2 million children included in there.
So food insecurity disproportionately affects people of color. The prevalence of household food insecurity differs markedly by Indigenous status and racial and cultural group. The highest rates of food insecurity are found among households where respondents identified as Indigenous or Black.
And our group kind of came together in light of COVID-19. And that's because COVID-19 has really impacted food security in really huge ways. A lot of the time because of like heavy job losses, but ultimately we saw rates of food insecurity increasing from 1 in 8 households up to 1 in 7.
So food insecurity is tied to well-being. Individuals who experience food insecurity report poorer physical and mental health. The risk of experiencing depression, anxiety disorders, mood disorders, or suicidal thoughts increase with severity of food insecurity.
So then we are at the intersection of food security and mutual aid. And mutual aid is a form of solidarity-based support in which communities unite against a common struggle rather than leaving individuals to fend for themselves. And so it's a really non-hierarchical way of just working with your community to make sure everyone is taken care of and has what they need.
So mutual aid is an act of solidarity that builds sustained networks between neighbors. Mutual aid systems operate under the notion that everyone has something to contribute and that everyone has something that they need. And we practice mutual aid not as activism, but as the basis of our everyday relationships.
Community fridges are a really kind of funky form of mutual aid because they're so decentralized. And so that means that there's no core group of organizers, but rather everyone can take ownership of these resources and they can become hubs in community for people to take directions for themselves and for what their peers and people around them need. Nicola.
So inspired by many other fridges opening up across North America during COVID, we opened under the community food support umbrella. We decided to start this community fridge to fill existing gaps that we could see in access of food and address different needs than the hamper program does.
Yeah, and we think it's kind of unique from food banks because there's no needs assessment that's ever done or policing or limiting what people take. And we believe that in contrast, yeah, go.
Sorry. So when we started the fridge, we first had to find a host, which was challenging, but we're excited to be partnered with The Number in Rock Bay. Since then, we had to build community support to get started. We mostly use social media and also local news outlets and community centers, and we crowdsource funding startup costs.
And since we opened, we're really excited to have really been deepening our roots in community. And so we have like schools with drop-off boxes. We got to paint this beautiful mural you see around the fridge now. We've been attending farmers and holiday markets to do like fundraising and outreach and meeting people. And we're also looking for a second host fridge location.
So there's many different ways to support the community fridge. And you can sign up just to clean the fridge. You can organize a food or fundraiser for the fridge. You can make a donation either directly to the fridge by dropping off. It's open 24/7, or you can become a donor on Open Collective, and you can get in touch with our mailing list, social media.
Yeah, getting on our mailing list is a really good way to get looped in, because then you'll get the meeting links, which are sent out, and we meet primarily over Zoom every 2 weeks. And you'll also receive the invite to our Slack chat, which is where we do kind of all of our communicating and planning.
So if you're interested in getting involved, you can do a bunch of different things, taking on tasks, for example, business outreach, fundraising, helping with social media and event planning. You can put up posters around your community, or you can do stuff in your life. You can set up a food drop-off bin at your work, school, or neighborhood, or you could host a fridge yourself.
And to close, we just wanted to leave you with this quote. How would we organize and move our communities if we shifted to focus on what we long for and love rather than what we are negatively reacting to? So I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who voted us good food champions. That's really, really cool for our team, and we'll pass that along right after this call. And to CRFAIR for hosting us. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much to the Community Fridge Initiative. I am on your mailing list. I follow you on socials, and they are so very active, and I think that's really great. There's a lot of, understandably, a lot of organizations, I think, that use their socials, but normally when something big is happening, but sometimes it feels like there's always a call out, there's always a way to help when it comes to the Community Fridge. And so I would definitely encourage everyone to get involved and to follow up through socials or attend the meetings. It's really a community collective, and I really think it's cool. So I was really excited to see that happen. And I also really hope that there can be a second location for that fridge, because it's interesting in the sense that food is such a necessity, food, hygiene products, the ability for basic needs. And it's kind of strange that such a basic necessity is such a revolutionary concept, but I love to see it. Next, I believe that we are now going to hear from the South Island Farm Hub, thankfully. So I will just reintroduce them in saying that they're a social enterprise of the Victoria Community Food Hub Society. They're a farmer-driven produce distributor, an online platform for local and seasonal produce and locally processed foods. I know that they support initiatives such as EA Collective, and I'm sure there's so much more that they support. So I will definitely hand it over there.
Sorry, I'm just trying to set up a couple of things here. Nice to see everyone this morning. Happy Saturday. Okay, so the South Island Farm Hub is a social enterprise of the Victoria Community Food Hub Society. It's a farmer-driven produce distributor and online platform for local and seasonal food products. Our mission is to support farmers and food processors to diversify and expand their sales and to meet the growing demand for local sustainable food in the CRD. In March of 2020, restaurants closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Local farmers lost a valuable market, some up to 40% of their sales. Crops destined for these restaurants were already planted and ready for harvest. With the help of the Rapid Relief Fund through the Victoria Foundation, the South Island Farm Hub was able to fast track its launch and start the aggregation and distribution process to purchasers. Our development was a demonstration pilot of the Closing the Supply Gap initiative, but it was the purchase of the Mustard Seeds Food Security Distribution Center as a community asset that set the stage for providing a home for us. Next came crop planning with anchor farmers, designing our online platform, marketing outreach, and we were off to the races. Our store launch allowed our wholesale and charity customers to shop our local, fresh, and sustainable produce and learn about our suppliers as well as delivery regions. Soon after, we launched our first ever locally curated produce boxes. We have seen great uptake in the service, and it's become evident how much our community wants to support local farmers. And here we are, the team making them, sorry guys, I'm one slide behind. The previous slide, we are the team making the magic happen. Not everyone is shown here. Our team is small but mighty, and we are all very passionate about food systems. Our roles cover community relations and supplier relations, operations, driving packaging, and marketing. So how it works is our suppliers post their available product with their pricing. The Farm Hub markup is added. Customers place their orders. Our suppliers are sent their pick list. We pick up and aggregate at a location in Saanich, and then we bring back to the warehouse, pack orders, and deliver. Over the year, the Farm Hub has expanded to a one-stop shop farmers market. We now work with over 20 local farms and over 15 local food processors. We have worked hard to offer more variety of our local food region, expanding to local meats and seafood, artisan breads, cheese, organic eggs, and fermented foods. It has been a win-win for our team and our suppliers, as we've been able to give a leg up to new small and medium scale producers that don't have the operational support or volumes to meet the needs of large grocery stores. Together, we are strengthening the local food economy by providing another option other than the global food chain. Our customer base is diverse and works to improve food security and food literacy through a variety of sectors. We work with up to 15 local charities feeding vulnerable populations, local chefs and catering companies, school teachers running cooking classes and meal programming, and home customers within the CRD. We have slowly and sustainably expanded our delivery regions for our home customers. We are on the road Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, covering the areas of Victoria, Central Saanich, Victoria West, View Royal, Langford, and Colwood. We also offer pickup at our warehouse in Esquimalt. We are extremely grateful for our brand new partnership with Charlotte and the Quail. Not only are they a customer of ours, but they are also offering their space at the Horticulture Center of the Pacific as a location for residents outside of our delivery region to pick up their Farm Hub orders and therefore support local. One of our most notable initiatives has been the Farmbox program. This was kickstarted by the Rapid Relief Funding in the spring of 2020, where we were granted $250,000. Farmbox are credits that are provided to charities and schools involved in the relief efforts to purchase local food. Farmbox offset the higher costs that local produce has over global suppliers, making local and fresh food available for the health and well-being of those in our community. Each charity receives a total allocation of Farmbox, and as they make their purchases, 50% of the purchase is offset with the funding. Our farmers are then paid in full price for their produce. Today, we work with over 15 charities, supporting their food programming and hamper programs on a weekly basis. Some of these folks include Our Place Society, Kool-Aid, EA Creative, Songhees, Verks, and Shelburne Community Kitchen. We have also supported dozens of schools across 4 school districts. The South Island Farm Hub has made the leap to increasing equity in our food system. Having a network of complementary food and farm sector infrastructure in our region is a pathway forward for revitalization for the local food economy. We look forward to growing a vibrant regional food system with you all. Thank you so much to all of you, to our community, to our farmers, and our food processors.
Thank you so very much. What an engaging presentation. It's incredible to know how you're able to support so many local farms as well as local produce and bring them together in that network. And I can only see that growing. I saw in the comments and everyone feels so supported by the work that you all do there. And we can see the community outcry. And so I think that's just really incredible. Thank you so much. Finally, and absolutely amazingly, and I might be a little biased on this, but we have a presentation from Zoe Blues about the biodiversity design. This project aims to teach all ages about Black peoples, Indigenous peoples, and peoples of color who have been ecological stewards throughout history. What I really love about this design is also just how beautiful it is. If you haven't got a copy, you don't have your hands on one, you absolutely need to. It is a work of art, both intellectually and also visually. And so I'd love to hand this over to Zoe.
Thank you. Awesome. So I am grateful to live here on the lands of the Wasatnish peoples. I strive to learn about land and water stewardship and how to treat land and water with respect and reciprocity. Much of the knowledge that I've received has come from learning about Wasatnish peoples and their relationships to plants, animals, and waters that has existed since time immemorial and continues today. My name is Zoe Bluecoats, and I am the creator of the Biodiversity Zine. I am a Black queer person who has West African, Chinese, and Scottish heritage. Oh, sorry, we're just ahead by a few slides. Just go backwards. Great, thank you. Yeah, we're on the second zine, I think, or the second slide. My family has lived here on Turtle Island for at least 10 generations since my ancestors were brought to Taino and Tuscarora lands as slaves. I live on these lands as a Canadian citizen, but I work each day to uphold Indigenous sovereignty and support moves to revitalize Indigenous foodways, language, and knowledge. This work is in respect of my ancestors who have had their Indigenous languages, food systems, family structures, and cultural knowledge destroyed so that their bodies could be used to extract and develop stolen lands on Turtle Island. I was born and raised on One Dish, One Spoon Wampum in Tikaranto, or Toronto, Ontario. And as a kid, I went to school in predominantly white communities. Because of the way that history is taught, I thought my love for things like classical and country music was a sign of my assimilation into whiteness. After I graduated high school, I focused my post-secondary studies on how lesser known histories can change the ways that we see the world. Biodiversity is a series of zines that I created to share the stories of non-white people who have had a relationship of respect and reciprocity for the lands, waters, and non-human beings that they've lived with. Living this way is ecological stewardship. I was inspired by a podcast called Black in the Garden. They describe themselves as being at the intersection of Black culture and horticulture. The host, Cola B. Talking, interviewed Black folks who worked with plants and about their jobs. Many of them spoke about how working with plants is often seen as a white thing and how they were often the only Black folks in their fields. Black in the Garden has an episode on George Washington Carver's legacy. They called him the GOAT, or greatest of all time, for his contributions to soil science and for helping Black farmers learn how to take care of their soils with the help of compost and nitrogen fixers. This episode got me thinking about other non-white people who have impacted areas related to food or plants. And we're just, next slide. I have always loved comic books, not so much superhero comics, but ones about historical events like Persepolis by Marianne Satrapi, about her childhood in Iran during the Islamic Revolution, 500 Years of Resistance by Gord Hill about Indigenous resistance to colonization, and The Harlem Hellfighters by Max Brooks, about a regiment of Black men in the US Army who saw more combat in World War I than any other American unit. Comics are an effective way to create accessible learning tools for all ages. However, comics require a lot of resources to be brought to life. Zines, on the other hand, can be self-published and still use illustration as a tool to convey key information. Through grant funding, we have been able to hire 2 illustrators for each zine, one to illustrate plants and animals and one to illustrate subjects. This allows us to highlight and share the work of different BIPOC artists with each zine. And it's been a joy to meet different people from all around so-called Canada. Biodiversity 1 had illustrations from Nilu Farazadeh and Jamie Blankenship. Biodiversity 2 had illustrations by Nicole Neintart and Carissa Chandrakady. Biodiversity 3 has illustrations by Dre Searle and Emily Thiessen. And Biodiversity 4 will have illustrations by Joy Genda and Neil Aaron. I'm so grateful to each of these artists. The project would have been much uglier without them. The first zine was generally about ecological stewardship and did not have a central theme. It includes botanist and educator George Washington Carver, forager and survivalist Harriet Tubman, agronomist Jane Mount Pleasant, Indigenous labor organizer Chico Mendez, and Kenyan environmentalist Wangari Maathai. The second zine was about Indigenous food sovereignty. I chose this subject to show the interconnectedness between humans, non-human beings, land and water, and the ways that we might learn from Indigenous ways of knowing to build stable communities. It includes educator and knowledge holder Bianca Elliott, water protector elder Josephine Mandamin, land defender Frida Hewson, ethnobotanist and artist C. Swice and Anne Riley, and geographer Hindu Umaru Ibrahim. The third zine is about seed saving and seed savers. I was fortunate to learn about the seed diversity and was inspired to create a whole zine about it. It includes the history of West African seed savers in the transatlantic slave trade, founder of Palestine Heirloom Seed Library, Vivian Sansour, and founders of True Love Seeds, Chris Golden Newsom and Owen Taylor. The fourth and final, biodiversity, is about back agriculture in the United States in honor of my maternal relations who were farmers from the time that they arrived on Turtle Island until the mid-20th century. This zine will include freedom fighter Fannie Lou Hamer, farmer and educator Leah Penniman, community-supported agriculture creator Booker T. Watley, urban beekeepers Timothy Paul and Nicole Lindsay, and inventor Henry Blair. In each zine, there are guided questions and terms. I did this so that a parent or educator can read the zine with young ones in their lives and have a conversation about what they've learned. My aim with this project is to give anyone who reads it food for thought. I hope that readers will begin to understand that the erasure of history that discusses non-white folks' connection to the land is a symptom of white supremacy. On Turtle Island, many folks in Black and Indigenous communities have been systemically relocated to urban areas through the process of land theft and genocide. This pattern continues today in places like Wet'suwet'en on the Yintah, where RCMP have ripped people from their homes in the name of colonization disguised as job opportunities. I hope that non-white youth read the zine and know that being ecological stewards and working with plants and animals is not forging a new path, but continuing their ancestors' legacies. I hope to see more non-white youth who live in urban areas take interest in fields of food, plants, and animals in the coming years and reclaim traditions of land stewardship. I want to be clear that this project isn't to highlight the mistreatment of BIPOC folks. It is to uplift our stories of resilience, ingenuity, and the fact that we have always and always will have relationships to the land, waters, plants, and animals around us. So with that, I'm going to leave you with some food for thought that you can reflect on in your own time. Who is an ecological steward in your own life? They can be of any background, and they also don't need to be famous at all. What does this person do that is connected to ecological stewardship? And what is a plant, animal, or place that they have a relationship with? And why are they important to you or your community? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zoe Blues. That was an absolutely incredible presentation, and you've given me so much to reflect on. And even that last question about who's an ecological steward in your life, coming from the Bahamas, over the last couple of years, I've really been reflecting on what is it that I know? How is it that I know what I know? I've been learning a lot from my Indigenous kin when they reflect on, here's some knowledge, but also here are the people that gave me that knowledge. Here's where that knowledge originated, and being able to trace that back. And that's something that I hope to be able to aspire to. When it comes to Bohemian food systems, when it comes to native plants and different things, one of the biggest things I'm realizing is that it has been completely erased out of our history, and I'm trying so hard, but I'm realizing like how hard I have to try simply to find an article about Bahamian bush medicine, simply to find some sort of research, any paper, anything written in the last 10 to 15 years, anything that has been written within my lifetime even, or my parents' lifetime around it, and something that isn't just a pamphlet that was found somewhere, but something where there was deep intentional thought put into what exactly was our role around food, what was our intentionality? Why is it important? And that's why I was so grateful. I don't know anyone who saw or who follows me on social medias, but I found this amazing article called Decolonizing Alternative Food, Alternative Medicines. And it's about what we describe as Bahamian bush medicine. And Bahamian bush medicine simply is the understanding that there are medicines all around. And we call them bush medicines because you can go and you can harvest these from any kind of bush or ecological area around the area. And each different plant, leaf that you steep, you boil, you chew, you slice, have a medicinal property. And I was so excited to see that article because that was written this year, September 2021. And I was overjoyed because I was like, look, it's coming back. Look, there are people actively engaging in this again. There are people actively having this conversation. And therefore, there are people that I can look up to. There are people that I can reach out to. I found this amazing book called Native Plants of the Bahamas. And it's specifically for one of the Bohemian Islands. We're like an archipelago of 700, so there's a lot of us. But what was amazing about that book was it was an interwoven kind of presentation of medicinal plants, their uses, different stories from elders kind of across the country about what exactly they use it for, their memories of tasting something super bitter that they didn't like, but how it instantaneously had that effect, them being able to tell the difference between one or the other, them engaging with certain plants that looked similar but weren't the same, and how they had to learn that hard lesson, what our cultivation rules looked like. And I've been having that conversation here, that you don't just take and take until there's nothing left. You take what you need and you leave what you don't. And I think what made me so grateful for this book is that it put words to experiences and knowledge that I had suppressed for so long. But what made me upset was that nobody who wrote that book or anybody who's actually in that book is still alive today that I can have conversations with. And I was reflecting on that. And I was trying to find, okay, well, what about your children? What about your grandchildren? Is this a knowledge that you were able to impart on them? Is this knowledge that they felt honored enough, that they felt proud enough to continue on and to build? Or is it something that constantly people have been telling them that this is not important, that success looks like one thing, and this knowledge and this cultivation, this connection to land is not something that you should be maintaining? And so it's been so hard for me because I when I go back home, what I really ache to do is connect to people who have that relationship with the land. But it has been suppressed and it has been erased, and that has affected our cultures, and that's affected our knowledge, and that's affected this stream of what we can hand on to each generation, that intergenerational education and information and land stewardship. And so I'm so excited to be able to go home, and hopefully I'm excited to become someone who is knowledgeable around my Indigenous plant systems back home, knowledgeable around the ones here as much as I can be, and someone a couple generations from now can reach out to and hold that conversation where they're interested in it. And I'm not going to tell them that this isn't important or this doesn't change your life or this is not going to help you quote unquote succeed, but instead I help to cultivate, I help to kind of encourage that knowledge. And I think that's so incredible. There's this book that I think everyone should read, because I hope more books are like this. And it's very similar to the Bahamian bush medicines novel that I have, and it's like a hard copy. But I went to Indigo because I always go there, and I found this book, and it's called Black Food by, I believe, Bryant Terry. And what's incredible about it is it's recipes, but also just words around across the African diaspora, kind of mainly centered in the United States and people from there, but they're recipes. And in each recipe, there's a story. And the story is how my grandmother taught me how to make this, how I used to cultivate this raw material from the ground and what that process used to look like. And it's not about the fact, it's not focused on we were torn from the land, but instead it's focused on revitalizing and honoring that we were once a part of the land and we're trying to get back there again. It doesn't erase the way that we got there. It doesn't erase the paths and the processes that allowed us to, or forced us to lose the education that we have. But instead it just honors the connection that we feel when food is kind of at the center of creation and when we're able to engage in that. So it's absolutely amazing. And I hope that there are more books like that. What's also really incredible was it talked to spirituality. Food, as I'm sure you will hear kind of throughout this whole thing, is at the center of so much community the community fridge, they spoke about the intersections when it comes to food insecurity, housing, education, when it comes to your status here even. So the difference between someone who might be a citizen versus someone who's an immigrant, someone who's a recent settler versus someone who's been here as a first generation, second generation, third generation visitor on these lands, or now maybe a place that you call home. And how does that interconnect? How do all these intersections make me show up, and how does that make me different than you in terms of what supports I need in order to feel that connection? And so I love that we're having these conversations. I love that this is kind of what's happening here, and this is going to take me into what's coming up next. So thankfully, you know, our conversations don't end here, and so at 11 to 11:30 or 12:30, sorry, we're going to be having 2 congruent sessions. The first one is a virtual session, unscrabbling the puzzled food system. What I love about this session is that we have to all agree that some of these food systems seem to have been created in the most complicated ways simply to make us confused and make us be like, nah, I'm not about to do that. And what's so amazing is that we're going to have that conversation. What are the key and essential aspects to these food systems? What are the little puzzles that we've missed that might have kind of gone and hidden under the couch? And how do we pull that back out there and make sure we have a complete image? So that will be a virtual session. There's also going to be an in-person session. It's a youth session, and it's going to be at the University of Victoria kind of community garden there. And I'm so excited for that because I think we don't have enough conversations around how are we educating our youth. And when we're talking about youth, I'm not just talking about kids, but also people who are in that transition phase from teenager to adult and beyond. How are we having conversations with them about food systems, now about food justice, using that passion, that energy, and engaging that and informing that. And so this is going to be a youth session between the ages, I believe, 15 to 30, where they can come and hold dialogue and really talk and listen to their senses. They're connecting in a way that isn't just about the mind, but about kind of opening all those other senses that we have. After that, from 2 to 4, we've got 3 congruent in-person sessions that I'm super, super excited about. One of them is climate resilience. And so this is an in-person session, and it's going to take place at the Sandown Center for Regenerative Farming. And what this is going to be an opportunity to foster and engage with emerging growers, researchers, community members, and other regional growers to help build a thriving climate change resilient future. We have to admit that right now we are going through a lot, or really our planet is, and she is crying like massively, and we are getting absolute waves of that. And so I think it's really, really important that we take not just food system, what does it look like in a utopia, but where we are now, where we put ourselves, and how we can grow out of that. And so that'll be a really great conversation to have with a lot of educated people in that field. So I'm super excited about that. Another one that I'm really excited about that I will be attending is We Are Inflamed. And so this is with EA Creative, the EA programming, and it's led by my brother, Ariel. And it's going to be a conversation around food. What exactly does that mean when we talk about food justice? Who are we striving for justice for? I think one of the most grounding things that someone was talking about, we use the word liberation a lot. Liberation for you, liberation for me, but we don't always define what your liberation looks like or what mine looks like. And sometimes your definition oppresses mine, and sometimes mine oppresses yours. And so the only liberation that will work is one that is a unified and collective definition that doesn't oppress anyone, but instead helps to empower and uplift everyone. And so what's going to be really amazing is being able to have a conversation about what food justice is, about how certain peoples or certain intersections are affected differently, and how we can all show up for them. The last one also at the same time is going to be a plant knowledge walk. So it's going to start a little later, but do show up at Mayfair Mall at 2 p.m. Because this will be they'll help you get there. So transportation will be provided, but this is a plant walk. So you're tired of sitting on Zoom, you're tired of all these conversations that are just emotionally heavy, and that's fair. So much of this work, so much about food, what we're talking about is not just, is your stomach healthy? Is your your microbiome healthy? And that doesn't just come from eating, it comes from stress, it comes from making sure you're taking care of yourself physically. And so a big part of that is making sure you're physically connecting. And so this plant walk will give you an opportunity to learn about native plants and foods, an opportunity to connect, to touch the things that you're trying to speak life into, to be able to build that connection physically. And so that is an absolutely amazing experience. And it's led by JB Williams, and he's from Say Out and a How's It descent. And so we'll be able to learn a lot of really incredible things from him. And last but absolutely not least, at the end of today, if you're not absolutely exhausted, what I love about food, what I love about this gathering is the fact that not just all lectures, it's not just talking. There are so many creative ways that we are going to be engaging you and that we have engaged you yesterday and that we will today. And so what I'm really excited about is this Food is Land, Land is Body film screening. If you've been on the website, you should have seen the trailer, and last year was part 1. And this is a work done in under a project called Living in Liberation. And it always answers the question, what does living in liberation mean to you? And so once again, I take you and ask you to reflect on what is liberation? What does that look like for you? How does your liberation potentially look different to someone else's? And why do you think that is? What makes your liberation look different? And it's okay if it does, but how do you make sure that your liberation empowers and creates someone else's liberation? And how are you working towards that every day? And so during this conversation, what's going to be incredible is that we are immersive in the lands of so many knowledge holders and knowledge keepers around food, around land, around what that looks like, around what that really means, around stewardship and not ownership, around people speaking to and really in their element about what land looks like. And I'm so excited for that, for you to be able to witness and be immersive in that experience. And then after that, a dialogue around, okay, now that we witnessed, now that we watched, now that we thought on these things, here are some kind of open-ended questions for you to go away and think about, and we'll start that conversation in that space, but hopefully we'll kind of carry it out. So it's a hybrid event. There's going to be a session in person, and so if you sign up for the in-person session, I'm happy to see you there. And then there's also the hybrid event, so there's a virtual side as well. And so if you don't physically want to be in that space, totally understandable. You can watch that screening there. Living in Liberation has a lot of different parts, and so I'm really excited. This is just the second aspect to what is a creative entirety, but I'm so excited for the conversation between Jumana Rashek. She's done so much work in this project with the help of EA Creative, and I'm just excited for that conversation. So we are ending a little bit earlier than we expected, and so you'll have this break to be able to do whatever. It's currently, by my watch's times, about 10:20. So we will be starting back again, I believe, at 11. And so take the time, stretch, rest, get out of your seats. And I look forward to seeing you all either at the in-person sessions or at the screening this evening. Yeah, definitely have a great day. And thank you so much, everybody. See ya.